There's the window. Okay.
You up?
So the issue that Cape Town is facing is that you have people and you have baboons that live in areas that overlap with each other. So baboons, for example, in the wild, they tend to go into more high-lying areas in rocks and cliffs and trees for the night to be protected from predators. But in the day, they then migrate down to low-lying areas to forage for food. And on the Cape Peninsula, that's where the people have settled. So here you get this tension between baboons trying to find food and people not wanting them in their space. Oh, there's the baboons now. There's a baboon down here. There's several of them walking down there now. We have the juvenile and the adult walking along this road into town.
Oh my God. No.
So when baboons become more habituated to the urban space, they start looking for food in waste bins, in gardens, in fruit trees, and also sometimes in kitchens inside people's homes. And this creates a conflict between a lot of people as well. So some people are really happy to have wildlife around. It's really fascinating to see these creatures moving through their gardens, and others see baboons as really threatening and destructive as they kind of come onto properties and forage. And on top of this, you also have social media and news reports that create this picture that people are more divided than they actually are. There's a gradual polarization of views where the so-called baboon haters and the baboon lovers are portrayed by each other as increasingly extreme. So there's a lot of different ways that people respond to this, and we have extreme cases wherein some people respond to baboons by actively trying to kill them. There have been cases where baboons have been shot by residents. Other residents choose to get involved in trying to protect the baboons, and they will follow the troops around and try to flag down traffic and prevent them from getting harmed in any way by humans. So this whole situation is very tricky to manage for authorities. You have some people accusing authorities for not doing enough to control the baboons, and others accusing authorities for doing too much, being too harsh against the baboons and treating them as criminals. So that also makes it difficult to develop these strategies and come up with solutions that are acceptable to people. So the Unruly Natures project really came out of an interest in this issue that's going on, this tension between humans and baboons, and between humans living alongside baboons. I wanted to look at an issue when humans are trying to relate to a piece of nature, if you call it that isn't doing what we expect it to do. Globally, you really see how there's fewer and fewer spaces left to sort of try to protect the wilderness or the wild. In conservation practice, there's more and more talk about how can we find ways to have areas where humans and wildlife can coexist.
As cities grow across this continent, as Africa's population, grows by another 1 billion people over the coming, 50 years, most of which will be urban populations in cities that don't yet exist, cities that exist currently as small towns in rural areas. We need to be thinking as an African continent how our cities interact with the ecosystems around them in new ways.
The case with the baboons is interesting because baboons are harder to kind of just dismiss as a pest or a vermin. They're also more similar to us as humans. It's more easy to identify, to see an individual baboon and identify with it and see like, okay, you're just trying to get some food, you're trying to feed your baby. I think it forces us to reflect a bit more on our relationship to this other type of being. And also what we can see, I mean, it's more visible that they have their own ideas of what they want, and they choose to climb over fences or break into homes and so on, not because it's just like their natural behavior, but that they've been exposed to a new situation with humans around, and they've learned to make the best of that for their own sort of existence. So that type of agency in nature is something that I think is really interesting when you think about how humans relate to nature. But so yeah, we're coming at this project from a place of basically trying to understand the human side of the relationship between baboons and humans. I think it has really three main goals.
The first is around providing an objective view of what residents in the area actually want beyond the polarized debate.
Once we have an understanding of what people actually think, the second part really is to use the data about people's opinions to try to identify, okay, well, this is actually some common areas that you have.
And it's not just about consensus, because, I mean, it's in such a situation, it's very difficult to find a consensus. By engaging in those processes, we can facilitate like more of a dialogue creation and constructive dialogue creation.
And the third part is to then take all of the lessons from these first two steps to the city, to authorities, whoever is responsible for the various parts of the issue, and work with them to try and improve the program and the tools that they are and the strategies that they're implementing. There's not a lot of data that has been collected systematically in a sort of robust way to understand what people actually want. So the situation with the baboons has been a problem for several years. It's been a tricky thing to manage. Currently, we have what's called the Urban Baboon Program, which hires rangers to follow each of the baboon troops around to try to keep them out of urban areas as much as possible. However, in the last couple of years, 2023, 2024, authorities have been threatening to pull the funding for the Urban Baboon Program, which means that there wouldn't be any rangers around anymore. So in the last few months, in early 2025, we have seen a new situation where the baboon program has actually been shifted to a non-profit. So there's a collaboration now between the city of Cape Town and Sandparks at the national level and Cape Nature at the provincial level with a non-profit called Shark Spotters that is now going to run the baboon program for the next few years. So this is a new situation, and we hope that that's going to help improve things. However, in the last few months, we have seen ongoing tension where actually several baboons have been killed in urban areas by residents.
We're hoping that the relevant stakeholders can use the story and the data that we collect to guide their decisions, to understand better what the community are going through.
For us, it's also really important to have behind each data point to also have personal stories and personal experiences.
And once we have those stories and those narratives, we also want to then give them back to communities and most likely a bit more open art-based format.
So we brought Empatheatre in at the very early stage when we were thinking about designing this process. And I'd always been really inspired and kind of by their approach to unpacking and unlocking stuck issues in South Africa. We made the call early on to bake Empatheatre in as a kind of core component of how we would take the information we collated and collected and the relationships and networks we developed through that process a step further, a step beyond just taking it to academic publication or just presenting at conferences, and really thinking about how we return the stories, how we return the ideas, and how we deepen the discussion back into the communities and spaces that we collected the stories from.
And in that way, we are hoping that we can also create a space where we can open a dialogue around those stories, where we can create more empathy within and between communities towards different experiences with baboons that people have.
So in 2023, we conducted a survey, quite a large survey of over 500 respondents.
And in terms of selecting those areas to engage in, we looked at all of the spaces within the Cape Peninsula that were baboon affected and tried to give fair coverage of all of those in a representative sampling approach.
We wanted to actually go door to door and select houses at regular intervals so that you get an even spread across the population.
So we spent many days in the field, door to door, suburb to suburb, with an amazing team of field workers. And by and large, people were really open. They were keen to tell their stories.
At this stage, we are still analyzing a lot of the data that's come out of the survey. That will eventually also be published as sort of scientific articles in peer-reviewed journal. That is often a process that takes quite a while. And so what we wanted to do here was also share some findings as soon as possible with residents. And so we put together a report in early January 2024 with some of the findings that are that don't require so much more in-depth analysis. We did produce also these kind of small infographics that are more easy to share on social media.
It's very tangible as well. So actually that's something that the communities can take and say, in my area, given wide representative sample, this is what people want and this is what people don't want to see.
So we kind of summarized that into four key findings. And the first one is that baboon encounters are quite common and they're getting more common. So together, basically almost 9 out of 10 residents had shared experiences with us of baboons being at their house, either inside or outside. We also asked them about this, sort of what in the encounters that they've had, how did they feel? And the most common words they used was concern, fear, and distress. The second finding that we found was when we asked people how they actually perceive the baboon. So when we asked them what was the baboon like, what they generally described him as is calm, assertive, and curious.
Which for me, it's such an interesting paradox because on one hand, you have this person who's actually telling us, I have this hectic experience at home. But actually, when they start thinking about the baboon behavior, they actually think he's calm.
Already, you don't start to nuance the picture that you get from news stories and social media. Baboon encounters happen every day. And not a single respondent that we talked to shared a story of baboons physically harming a human being in their area. The third key finding that we had in this report was more about where do people place blame, basically. What do people see as the causes for negative interactions? And there is a bit of a divide here. There are some people who assign more blame on baboons and some more on residents, but the most common answer is actually residents. They generally point towards poor waste management, urban development, urban expansion, and sort of just a general lack of awareness. But the last finding that we highlight in this report is that while there is a lot of disagreement on baboon issues, there is also areas of agreements that are quite interesting. Most people want more education of residents. They want more, or at least the same amount of baboon rangers.
Baboon rangers are the most trusted actors, even more trusted than people in own community. So people trust rangers more than their neighbors, where City of Cape Town is the least trusted actor. And the City of Cape Town actually hires the rangers or pays for the rangers.
And almost everyone wants less euthanasia. So the killing of baboons is almost universally seen as something that we want to avoid. It doesn't mean that the report somehow points to easy solutions or a clear pathway forward. There is clear disagreement on a lot of things, but it's also clear that people aren't completely separated and they aren't completely divided on this as much as there might seem to be sometimes.
People on both sides of that polarized debate believe themselves to be representative or reflective of what the majority wants. And I think what the research shows is there's a lot more people in the middle than what social media and the community forum and discussions would have one believe. And I think that is really important to be bringing forward.
Yeah, Empatheatre began kind of officially in 2014.
Did you finish your PhD in
Yeah,
empathy?
I just finished my PhD looking at empathy as a kind of sculptural material. And Neil and Mpumi already had this long career of like really incredible kind of political, magical realist theatre. And so when we brought those two worlds together around social justice, it just was like it was just immediate. And then the three of us just created Empatheatre.
Yeah, so what Empatheatre does is that they use both the research that we have done, the survey that we conducted last year, and their own research that they do, and they use that to create a theatre script and a play. They perform the play in all of the different areas that we collected data from last year in the survey. Empatheatre combines the theatre play itself with then also having a facilitated discussion afterwards, where they facilitate conversations about the experiences that are portrayed in the play and how that's being interpreted by the audiences.
Yeah, so we are somewhere in Takai with what seems to be hundreds and hundreds of baboons. We are here with the Unruly Natures project and an Empatheatre collaboration that we're developing with Mr. Andrew Buckland over there, who's busy studying the baboons, which is one of the reasons for our visit this morning, is to really understand these creatures that we've been doing so much research about for the last year and a half, I think it is, with the Unruly Natures team.
Andrew Buckland, he was our first choice and we're very glad we got him. Who's just an incredibly accomplished theatre maker, all-round theatre maker. And he played a huge role also in helping us co-create this play, write it.
So as part of how we designed Unruly Natures, we also wanted to make sure that for each of the areas where we had collected stories, we also wanted to bring the Unruly, the play, back to those areas as well and engage the residents in conversation. And so thanks to the research funding that we had, we were able to offer the play for free to anyone who wanted to come and see it and participate in that discussion.
How I see the situation right now in the baboon context is that we are kind of in this moment of stuckness. We're communities that are trying their best. There's some public engagement, but it's not really meaningful. I see the Empatheatre as a possibility to kind of like unlock some of that stuckness and maybe lose some of those knots and maybe release some of the tension.
There's something that happens in this performance and play where the audience undergoes something together, and then you kind of vulnerable together and open, and there's a kind of receptivity at the end that's so beautiful to see how people speak to each other, the kind of respect and care that's shown. How can we just disarm people of the kind of armor that they normally walk into a conflict situation with. And we're finding that storytelling is one of the most profound and exciting ways of doing that.
Eugene is utterly unamused.
When we've looked at the feedback forms that people have filled in after the shows, we have seen that it has had quite interesting impacts on them, or that they view things differently. Many talk about having a richer, fuller understanding of the complexity of the issue. They talk about imagining different ways of being with baboons or living alongside baboons. And many also feel connected to each other and empathize more with both other residents that they didn't really care for so much before, and also caring more for baboons.
Yeah, it was a very moving play. The experience of people where they trash their houses, how difficult it is for them. I had a bit more of an experience of that, and how they can get angry and how they can get defensive and how they can put up more and more barriers. It helped me to understand that as well, the other side.
It felt here in Komiki there was a definite sense of people listening to each other, being able to express something shared, but then I think also listening to the difference. It did feel like there was space for many voices, and I think it reignited a real sense of how much of an impact theatre making can have.
So moving forward, we've had a lot of interest in the play, requests to bring it to new areas and new audiences. We're also looking forward to share it more with authorities and people working with conservation, as well as bringing it to scientific conferences as well, to share it with other researchers. We did have some people from the joint task team come watch the play during the previous runs, and we're also really looking forward to continue the conversation with them about the research findings and their work and how we can sort of best benefit each other going forward in helping solve this problem.
Must die! Flames igniting, crackling.
Public engagement has been an issue for a long time around this issue. It's been very tricky to have conversations within communities as well as between communities and authorities. This is where we hope that Empatheatre can contribute something new and help people find new ways of talking to each other and working together towards solutions. The Cape Town case is really unique, but it's actually not that unique. There's a lot of cities around the world that have similar issues around wildlife in the urban space. And we are working with the researchers now to try and increasingly share lessons between different cases.
You know how they survived, England.
Even though the Cape Town's case with the baboons is quite a tricky one to resolve, I think any progress we can make will be really useful for that collaboration. There's a lot of things that can be shared that will be really valuable for these other cases, both in terms of how you live with wildlife, but also how you deal with highly polarized issues where people struggle to get along.